Greetings, this is Stan, and the program is the Creator Entrepreneur Podcast, and it's called Ideas, Influence, Impact, Income, and we've kind of added another I to it. If you do this kind of work, the podcast work, the communication, and the talking to people around the world, you will become more interesting, and you'll meet some very interesting people. And I'm doing the program live today, in a sense, from a White Stallion Ranch in Tucson, Arizona, White Stallion Ranch, Tucson, Arizona, where we will be producing another podcast. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that and how we might be able to help you. And then, in this special week, we might want to talk about what is real, what is powerful, and what is true. That's coming up. The program begins right now.
Come and listen in to a radio station where the mighty host of heaven sing. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on.
And indeed. Now, for many, many people in the Christian tradition, obviously even those who are not, it's such a national thing in the United States that it obviously affects everything. This is the week before the Easter holiday, and in many places it's called Holy Week. And it primarily begins on the Sunday before, and then a variety of thoughts and remembrances and services that carry through to Easter Sunday morning, when Christians celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. I've oftentimes said that it's more than that, and I've often called it the Power Week. The Power Week. And then, of course, many people call it the Passion Week, and I try and say with a smile that oftentimes the reason I do that is because not a lot of holy things, in terms of what we usually think is holy, happened on that week. Not holy at all. In fact, it's pretty gruesome and pretty tough and pretty mean, and in some cases pretty terrible. But what I wanted to do today is just simply introduce you to, first of all, what we are all about, why I'm at the White Stallion Ranch in Tucson, Arizona. My friend Russell True heard me when I first came to Tucson when I did a radio program called What It Takes Radio. And What It Takes Radio eventually became the name of my program production company. And the program, we kind of subtitled it by saying it's Do It Right Radio. We're going to try and help you do what it takes to do it right. And it was quite successful. We did it for a couple of years, and Russell heard me on the radio on a Sunday afternoon. I contacted him because he contacted me, and we were off and became long-time and long-term friends because he and his family are the owners, and he is the second generation, passing on to the third generation of a classic, legacy, historic dude guest ranch right here in Tucson, and it's called the White Stallion Ranch. And I would encourage you to go to whitestallion.com. That's whitestallion.com, and find out more about it, because you're going to be invited to come and visit this wonderful place. So why don't you do just that? Now, what I'd like to do today is, first of all, tell you that, as Russell would say, finally, after 5 years, Stan talked me into it. And then he paused and said, and I'm so glad he did. Now, what did I talk him into? Well, doing exactly what I'm doing right now. We are at the ranch with all of my remote facilities, and we have two golden microphones that he will use along with his partner, Alan Day. Now, Alan Day has a long history of being truly a rancher cowboy in the modern era. And he's also known because when he was growing up, he had a cowgirl sister who went on to real fame. She was truly a ranch gal girl woman, and her name was Sandra Day, and she married and became Sandra Day O'Connor, distinguished woman, and eventually the first woman who was appointed to the United States Supreme Court. And as he says, that's my big sister, and I'm her little brother. And they actually wrote a book. In fact, they've kind of put together a second book, and it talks about the life of growing up in what is no longer the Wild West, but it is certainly the Western way of life, which still has its challenges, its ups and downs, its back and forth, and it really reflects a lot of what the American traditional West, somewhat of the cowboy ethos and the cowboy culture, is all about. And finally, I talked Russell, and he then talked Alan, and now we are producing an award-winning radio program. He said, I'm sure glad you talked me into this, Stan. I said, well, it took long enough. And they call it the Cowboy Up Podcast, and what it amounts to is two old cowboys who have hundreds, and that's not an exaggeration, they have hundreds of stories to tell and adventures to share, and perhaps some corny and oftentimes crucial wisdom that they share with a smile. As we oftentimes say, Alan Day has a day brightener, and Russell True has some old cowboy wisdom. And of course we enjoy by saying, and of course, it's all true. And we hope that you will not only listen to our podcast, but you will take some time to listen to the Cowboy Up Podcast. And from time to time, they will actually be on our program. I have from time to time actually referred many of you to the Cowboy Up Podcast, and I will continue to do so. But here we go. This is for you. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is these are two old guys who never, ever thought, planned, or would even consider doing a radio show. I'm a rancher, I'm a cowboy, I'm a horseman. Radio? Well, what they found out is it became the perfect complement to what they are all about, which is enjoying the Western tradition, meeting writers, meeting singers, poets, and all kinds of other people who love the Western cowboy tradition. And they have many special guests. And today we're actually talking to a gentleman who has discovered a way to help wounded veterans, particularly wounded by PTSD, and how they and their situation, and as he will demonstrate, their lives have been saved by being taken out of the town and the place and the situation they are, put on a ranch, put on a place where there are wild Mustangs, and they get to save each other. They help save the Mustang from destruction, and maybe turning that Mustang, that horse, into not only a useful horse, but one that has value and works for other people. And in many cases, as they testify, it saved them. Obviously, the rate of suicide among our veterans is a tragic one, and right now people are trying to figure out how we can help deal with that. And let me tell you, one of the things that is working is not sitting on a couch and talking to a therapist. It's much, much better to get involved in a project of restoration, of recreation, of, hey, getting to know somebody else, getting to know something else, and most importantly, as they say, getting to know myself once again, and what I can be and what I can do. So that's what the show is all about. And those are the kinds of guests we have. And then who knows what will happen next. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, because you can do this too. I guarantee you, no matter what you have done in life, are doing now, there is something that you have been gifted with. There's something God has given you. There is something that you've achieved. There's something you have suffered. There's something you've been through. There's something that you've triumphed over. There's something you have messed up at. And there is something you have mastered. And all of it is fair game. And your story, your wisdom, your insight, your truth needs to be shared with others. What we have learned very, very much in COVID is locking people down and keeping them separate is not good stuff. It may or may not reduce the disease, but we are made for each other. We are made to be in community. We are made to have no social distance, but social connectedness. We are meant to communicate and learn and be and care for one another. That's what we were made for, and we want to do that and get better at it. Hey, it's 11 minutes, so it's time for me to take a little promotional break, and then I'll come right back, and I'll tell you something about this week that might be helpful to you.
Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free.
Here we go again. Thank you for your time. This, as I mentioned, is what some people call the Holy Week. Some people call it the Passion Week. I have called it the Power Week, because what it is, it helps us understand some of the power games that were being played and how they worked out, and how learning from them and seeing them, maybe even experiencing them, can be helpful to us all, whether you are a faithful follower or a believer or not. Here's what happened. It's all about power. Jesus came and he said, there's a new Messiah in town. Yeah, not a sheriff, but someone who's here to help, heal, and save. And he did. And many people followed him. And many people believed what he said. And many people didn't. And so that was the struggle. And then on the day which we call Palm Sunday, he very much arranged that he would very symbolically, and the stories of the symbols are legion, ride into Jerusalem, not on a stallion horse, but on a donkey. And people realized that something had happened, and they shouted and they cheered, and they made a point of saying, could this be the one who will heal us, help us, save us, rescue us, give us freedom, particularly from the Romans? Could it be? But at the same time, a guy named Pilate, Pontius Pilate, a tough Roman governor who had been sent from Rome to kind of govern this rather wild and crazy province called Judea, was sent there, and he didn't like to live in Jerusalem. He preferred by the seaside. But when the Passover festival came, which was about freedom, he knew that that's a time when sometimes the people of Israel would raise up protests into riots, into more than that. And so he got on a horse, and with a chariot, he rode into Jerusalem to make sure that the people knew who was really in power and who was in control. At the same time, the establishment, the Jewish establishment, which tried to play the game between the people and, of course, the governors of Rome, they found that their power was threatened, and they had to figure out what to do with this new guy. And as supposedly Pilate says, in Jesus Christ Superstar, you Jews produce messiahs by the sackful. But this could be the real deal. And what are we going to do about it? Well, that's what this week is all about. And I would encourage you to think of it that way. Find out what is happening. I have been talking on my podcast and on our On the Edge video about these three issues. We have to discover in this COVID crisis, when so much has been fake and so much has been false and so much has been wrong, what is real? In life, in business, and in our circumstance, what is real? And then we have to understand power. Power, people want it, they seek it, they desire it, they want to use it, they want to take advantage of it, and they want to make sure you don't power them. They want to power you. Well, we have to understand power. And then we have to understand what is true. What is true? What is real? What is true and real about power? And then what is true in how should we then live our lives? And how can we live them well? And how can we perhaps live them in such a way that we are fully alive, that we have great relationships, that we are men and women of character, and at the same time we are people who achieve and aspire and accomplish things. How do we do that? Well, that's what this week is all about. It's not just about a religious festival. It's not just about Jesus. It's not just about the Romans. It's not about the Jewish establishment. It's about you. As I oftentimes say in radio, this week is for you. Thank you for your time. I hope this will be a week, even though you may have done this week many times, hundreds of times, maybe not 100, but it seems like it, but many times, that this might be a different time, that something new and fresh and renewing might come to you. This COVID crisis has changed us in so many ways, and we are looking for how can we be rescued? How can we be saved? How can we discover what we really need to do? And we would like to help you do just that. I think we can. Please reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. We can help you with what it takes radio to become people of the podcast. And in our work as creator entrepreneurs, we can help you create an entrepreneurial business that will work, that will last, and that will make a difference in your life, in your world, and maybe even the world. We believe we can do just that. So reach out and give us a try. 520-664-7002 if you want to do that. Sure, leave a message. 520-664-7002. Or stanhouston@gmail.com. stanhouston@gmail.com. We'll be back this week with more, perhaps, counsel and advice. Until that time, all the best and blessings for the week and for this very day. And bye for now.